Welcome, everybody, to this meeting of the Medfield Energy Committee. This is an informational workshop hosted by the Energy Committee, and my name is Heli Passas. I'm the co-chair of the Energy Committee currently. I'm just going to call this meeting to order, and because it's an official meeting, I should let you know that this meeting is being recorded. Tonight, we have with us Emily Lowney and Chris Gordon from the Renewable Pillar of the Energy Committee, who are going to talk about municipal solar and residential solar. And also we'll welcome Lori Mead McRory, who is a Medfield resident, and she is going to talk to us about her experience about having solar. So thank you for attending. Tonight's topic is why go solar? Could I have the next slide? So why go solar? This is on obviously everybody's mind who's here tonight. And if I could have the next slide, please. We all know about climate change. This is from 2020 when Norwood Hospital was getting flooded, and we're still dealing with the fallout of this. I don't think they're going to be opening until 2025, and it's still disrupting local services. And then last summer we had the critical drought all over Massachusetts that didn't get resolved until well into the fall, early winter. And then if we just look at the news in the last week or the last few days, you can see all sorts of items pop up that are, disturbing in all sorts of areas. And I'm not going to read them out, but one thing that really came up was this report by the International Panel for Climate Change, a UN body, and they were issuing another dire warning, but they also said, if we take urgent action right now, we can still have possibly a livable future for all. So that was good news if you so wish. And yes, go to the next slide. So this is a part of there's a summary of that IPCC report, and I don't want you to go through all the details. It basically shows all the, several of the areas that will get affected by climate change, and a projection that the International Panel of Climate Change made if we go to a global warming of 1.5 degrees, 2 degrees, and 3 degrees, and it shows how bad, how much worse it gets as we get more and more warming. So they recommend that we reach a peak of CO2 emissions before 2025. So we really need urgent system-wide reduction of the greenhouse gas emissions. Where would that be? Could I have the next slide, please? So they are also suggesting 10 key areas where decarbonization or reduction of greenhouse gas emissions could happen. And some of them are, we can't really do anything about coal plants, but some of them are very practical for us to tackle. And could I have the next slide, please? This is the area we're going to talk about, the investment in clean energy and clean efficiency. So where does Medfield stand? In 2021, about 2 years ago, the town meeting, the residents of Medfield, passed a climate goal to reach net zero by 2050, which is in keeping with the national and the state goal. And the resolution also encourages everybody in town to take action in the furtherance of this Medfield climate goal of net zero 2050. Next slide, please. So the Energy Committee went about and wanted to find out where the greenhouse gas emissions come from in Medfield. And this is the greenhouse gas inventory we made. And you can see that the vast majority of the emissions come from private vehicles and residential buildings. So these are really valuable targets to think about. And, this is where everybody in town can make a difference. Next slide, please. So we thought about how to make a plan to help people plan for this transition, and the criteria to consider were where do we make the biggest impact first, which is obviously in you can see those vehicles and buildings. Where is their technology available, and also where are the rebates and incentives available to make it more economical? What we also heard over and over in the Energy Committee is that the town must lead by example. So could I have the next slide, please? So we drew up a strategic plan on how to reach the net zero goal from Medfield, and it's called the Town of Medfield Climate Action Plan, TOMCAP for short. And in it, we have a bunch of, it's quite detailed, but we can summarize sort of our strategies in 3 strategies. We want to use energy more efficiently, especially in buildings and transportation. We want to try and electrify everything. And part of that goal is then to make electricity come from 100% carbon-free sources by 2030. So why solar? Obviously, this is part of that decarbonization of our electricity supply. It will reduce greenhouse gas emissions. It will offset the price of electricity. There are incentives available. It is locally produced, so there is no loss in transmission. And it's definitely an action that most residents can take in some way or another. And we also find it is very important to show our younger generation that we take their climate concerns very seriously and we take action. Next slide, please. So why is it important to do this now? There are some limits to the interconnection and to current state incentives, and it's advisable to think about doing solar now or as soon as possible. And there are the important point is also that the emissions savings and the financial savings accrue year to year. So anything that is saved now will also be saved next year and the following year. Next slide, please. Oh, and here I come to an end, and I'm introducing Chris Gordon, who is going to talk to you about the initiatives that the town is taking to increase their renewable energy sources.
Great, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Gordon, the newest member of the Medfield Energy Committee. As Hilly presented, solar is an important part of the town's effort to get to our net zero goal. And I'd like to highlight the town's existing solar projects as well as our future plans. Next slide, please. The town's solar effort started back in around 2015 at both the town level and assisting at the individual level. Here are some of the different projects the town has initiated during that time that I'd like to call attention to going forward. Next slide, please. Before we get started reviewing the projects, I just wanted to call out our space on the town website. You can go to the solar projects page under the Energy Committee section to stay up to date on all of our activities. And I'd like to specifically point out the FAQ section as a place to go for anyone that has any questions. Next slide, please. The first town project was a solar array at the wastewater treatment plant. This project was approved unanimously at the 2014 town meeting and went online in 2015. Over the lifespan of the project, it is expected to save the town over $2 million. Solarize Medfield was a community program spearheaded by the Energy Committee in conjunction with the Mass Department of Energy. This program helped 29 Medfield homes install solar panels by connecting interested people with a verified preferred vendor. Next slide, please. Not many people know the public safety building has solar panels. These panels were installed during the initial construction and went online in 2016. Though it is a smaller array, it's still estimated that it will save the town almost $400,000 over the lifespan of the system. Our newest arrays are currently being installed in the town garage. Due to the supply chain issue, we are currently waiting on a few parts before we can connect the panels to the grid, but we hope to have the system online soon. These panels are being installed through a PPA, a power purchase agreement, which is where you allow a vendor to install solar panels on your property and agree to purchase the power generated from the system at an agreed upon rate. The great benefits of PPA are there are no capital costs for the installation, and the locked in known energy costs going forward. Next slide. Those are some of the existing town projects that are currently underway. Looking ahead, the Energy Committee has brought in consultants to see what other opportunities might be available for the town. They had identified the old landfill and the school properties as great potential sites. Next slide, please. The first project that we're looking for to move forward is a combined effort by the Energy and School Committees to place solar canopies at the school parking lots. Many nearby towns have completed similar projects, like the Aggie School in Walpole, Natick, and Westwood is currently working on an installation. In Medfield, the most viable spaces for these canopies would be at the middle school, the high school, and Memorial School. Next slide, please. For those projects, we will be utilizing a PPA agreement like we have done with the town garage. As you can see from the chart, these solar canopies would provide a large percentage of the current power used by these schools, and over the life of the arrays could generate as much as $1.5 million in savings. We all know the cost of electricity continues to rise, so the use of PPA will allow us to lock in the cost of the supplied electricity for the life of the contract, providing a great deal of savings. Next slide. With this slide, you can see the potential location for these projects. One thing I'd like to point out is, besides the canopies, we're also putting potentially solar panels on the top of the middle school roof. With this section of the roof recently being repaired, it provides a more suitable location for panels. We hope to incorporate more of the roofs when they become viable. The Energy Committee feels it's important to keep the town informed of these great projects, and thus we're using many different outlets to do so, much like tonight. Here are some of the efforts to date. During our in-person events, we've been handing out this FAQ flyer, which provides a lot of great information on the solar canopies. This FAQ is also available on the town-wide website, like we discussed earlier. And if you really like one, we'll have them available for tomorrow's in-person presentation of this at the Public Safety Building. Come join us. We also released a survey online to gather the town's views on the solar projects of the schools, and the responses so far have been very positive. If you haven't taken the survey yet, here's the website that you can go to. And please spread the word, as we would love more responses. Next slide. Here are some of the other outreach events we have coming up. We plan to have more as well, as the vendor provides more details on the proposed sites. And here is we have the draft of the warrant article for the upcoming town meeting that will allow the school committee to enter into a PPA for these solar projects if they so choose. This article is very similar to the 2021 articles that allowed for the solar arrays at the town garage. And as you can see from the numbers, we're still in the draft position. Approving the articles at the town meeting is an important step in the process, as it helps us enter the state's SMART program. Under the SMART program, the state's 3 investor-owned utilities, including Eversource, directly compensates participating solar systems owners for their solar power generation. And the earlier the project is incorporated into the program, the higher the compensation the rates are. Next slide, please. And just to be clear, approving the article at the town meetings does not lock us into anything at this point. The approval allows the school committee and the select board to enter into the PPA if they so choose. The school committee will get to make that decision once they have all the details of the project from the vendor. But we believe that approving the solar canopies will show that Medfield is heading down the path to a cleaner future. Next slide. And I'd like to now hand it over to Emily so she can discuss exploring the solar opportunities at your home.
Hi, my name is Emily Lowney, and like Chris and Hilly, I'm also a member of the Energy Committee. I'm here tonight to talk to you about what you can do at home if you want to go solar. Keep in mind, I'm not an expert. I don't work in the solar industry or anything like that, but I have done a ton of research on solar in the past year because in addition to working with the Energy Committee, I also put solar on my home in Medfield, and I also own a Cape house with my husband that we are putting solar on as well. As you'll notice as you drive around town, more and more homes in Medfield have solar. The first homeowner to put solar on their home was back in the year 2000, and we plugged along slowly there for a while. And then we got a bump in 2016 with the Solarize program that Chris mentioned. But today we've kind of gone exponential. We have 248 solar installations now, and that includes a couple of town projects and commercial projects, but over 200 of those are homeowners. So it's been really great progress, but we still have more work to do. Now, I broke the process down to go solar at home into 3 steps: the research, learning about solar, evaluating your home, selecting an installer, and hammering out the details. Over here is a picture of my home in Medfield, and you can see the solar panels up there. They're really not that noticeable actually, but you can see them up there behind the dormers. Next slide. So there's a ton of great resources online to learn about solar. Check Google's Project Sunroof. You can just put in your address and it'll give you a really quick estimate of how much you might save or if your roof is good for solar. Then sustainablemedfield.org has a Take Action portal that provides information as well as testimonials from actual Medfield residents that have solar. I really love Energy Sage. You've probably heard of it by now because we talk about it all the time, but it's so great because you can put in your information and you're going to actually receive multiple quotes from installers. And Energy Sage is kind of like, they could call themselves agnostic. They're not really promoting any particular installer, but you're going to receive those multiple information from them. And they also have a lot of articles on there just so you can learn. More articles can be found at goclean.masscec.com. That's a state agency that has a ton of information. Now, when you're evaluating your home for solar, you want to think obviously about your roof. Does it have a lot of sun? Does it have a lot of tree cover? A south-facing roof is best, but actually on my house, most of the panels are on the rear roof, which you can't even see in that picture. And that roof faces more west. So it really just depends. You have to go through it with your installer to see which roof has the expanse of space as well. If your roof is more than 15 years old, it might make more sense to replace the roof first and then think about putting up solar panels. You can take the panels down, replace the roof and put them back up, but there is a cost to that. So it's just something to think about. Then for system sizing, you want to gather your electric bills for the whole year because, as you know, your usage can change season to season, but add up like, what is my total usage for the year? And then you want to get a system size that's going to cover you once you average it out overall throughout the year. Some people actually will look for a slightly larger system size if they're planning on possibly adding an electric vehicle or heat pumps in the future. For selecting an installer, my #1 recommendation, same goes for any contracting job at your house. As you probably are aware, it's great to get multiple quotes. It really helps so much because you'll have one person that will just give you a completely different idea that no one else even mentioned. So it's so important. It's also a good idea to look at Sustainable Medfield testimonials, like I mentioned earlier, and ask any neighbors or friends who've been through the process. When comparing quotes, don't look just at price. You want to think about value. Like if you have a company that has a ton of great references and have done a ton of jobs, and they have a price somewhere in the middle, maybe you'll be better off with that in the long run. Price comparison can get a little tricky with solar too, because the panels by different manufacturers can have a different efficiency rating. So you want to just make sure that from installer to installer, they're giving you, well, this is what your system should produce, the actual output to the same output. Other things to ask your installer: can they provide references? Do they have a licensed electrician on staff? How long will the process take? Some companies are very busy and can get backed up. Like for my house, I think I signed the contract in April, and then it wasn't until August that they got running. And I'm happy with my company, so that was good. Warranties, you want a manufacturer warranty on the panels and the inverter, and I would look for 25 years there, but also the installer should warranty their workmanship, and ideally for 10+ years. Will they handle all your paperwork? There's going to be so much paperwork with applications for smart utilities, interconnection, permits. You just want to make sure that the company is going to walk you through that process because they should be familiar with it. Will they be using any subcontractors for the work, for any part of the work? And then you can also talk to them about financing. They may suggest a certain financing option. Just be careful because you don't want them to be promoting a certain option because they would get any financial benefit out of it. You want to make sure that they are just recommending a separate independent option. Then you get to your details. Once you've chosen your installer, hopefully they will help you go through some of these. We talked about system sizing earlier. You may also have to decide on the layout and the type of panels. I put up some pictures here from, it's all the same house, but different quotes. And as you can see, like it's all over the place a little bit. Like the panels are facing different directions. Some are going sideways, some are going up and down. One of the roof doesn't even have any panels on it in one option. So it's just kind of like a balancing act between what you think looks good on your house, but also like what can actually fit based on the measurements, and then what can produce the most electricity for you. Then type of panels, I mentioned mine are the all black version, but there's another type of panels that you've probably seen driving around town, which has like the little white grid lines throughout it that are a little more square shaped, which I think that one's really nice looking too. It's just a matter of personal preference. You want to make sure you have a reputable manufacturer. You may not be familiar with all of these names, but when you look online, you can see that it's not a brand new company and that it seems to have a good reputation. Then you're going to need to decide whether you're going to lease or purchase your solar panels. I'll talk more about that in a minute. A lot of people are adding battery storage to their system. It can be very expensive to add, but people really like it. I mean, it's going to actually generate some energy if the power goes out, so it's a great option. Critter guards can protect from like the little squirrels or mice chewing on wires up there, and I actually have that at my house. Snow guard is like, people ask about snow on solar panels in general, and they say that it just kind of melts off because the sun is hitting it and they're dark colored, they're facing right towards the sun. So snow is really melting pretty quickly off of those, but if it's falling off of a roof that people might walk underneath, it could be dangerous. So that's what the snow guard is for. And one very important detail, that once you get your panels up and running, next time April 15th rolls around, you want to tell your accountant, make sure you claim that 30% federal tax credit, and don't forget, plus up to $1,000 in state that you can claim. And then the question that I mentioned earlier, should I lease or purchase my solar panels, is a question a lot of people ask about. Chris talked about what is a PPA or power purchase agreement earlier. And basically that, like he said, a lease or PPA is where the company is going to come in and put up the solar panels at little or no upfront cost to you, but you're just kind of lending them your roof, and then they're going to give you some benefit in exchange, which would be a reduction on your electric bills every month. People like this option because it doesn't cost you a lot of money up front. But on the other hand, you're not going to get your tax credit, you're not going to get your smart payments. And then you need to know a couple of very important details in your contract. Like when this contract is over at 15 to 25 years later, what's going to happen? Are they going to take those panels down and leave your roof in a good condition? Or if you need to sell your home in the meantime, how does that work? What are the options? Then if you want to purchase your panels outright, that's considered a better financial investment. You're hoping to get your money back within 6 to 8 years. And then after that, 20 plus years, you're going to be getting free electricity. So that's great if you can come up with the cash. But of course, some people can't. You can check into financing options if you still want to be able to claim the tax credit and eventually be owning those panels for life. You can look into home equity loans, credit unions. There's also companies that just specifically do these type of loans. And then, you, like I said earlier, your installer may have recommendations, but you just want to make sure you get a few quotes on that too, because as we know, interest rates have gone up. And then with purchasing your panels, they really do last many years. I mean, they say 25 years, but it's more. From the few people who have them that long say that it's more. So, but you just have to be aware that if anything happens outside of warranty, you're going to be responsible for that maintenance. And then, oh, the important thing is to just do what is right for you with deciding whether to lease or purchase. But moving on, how long does the process take? I talked about that earlier. I broke down all the stages. They're going to have to design your system. They're going to have to apply for those permits and utility applications. Then the installation just takes a couple of days. That actually seems like the easy part now, looking at this. And then they're going to be waiting once everything's installed just to get inspections done and actually get it up and running. And I've heard of delays like supply chain, utility delays. In my experience, they're happening. So just give it several months and be patient, but also keep open communication with your installer. Don't be afraid to be the squeaky wheel. And now I've given you all this information. Don't get paralyzed and be scared to take action. Remember that putting solar on your home, not only will it save you money, but it's probably the most important thing you could do today as a homeowner to help Medfield reach its climate goals. And I have a list here of just multiple installers that the Medfield Energy Committee does not endorse any particular installer, but these companies have all done at least 12 projects in Norfolk County from 2019 to 2021. So if you wanted to just pick 3 names and just get 3 quotes, you'd be started on your journey. Well, thank you very much for listening, and let's hear from Lori Mead McGrory, who is a Medfield resident and has solar panels.
Hi, so I'm Lori Mead McGrory. My husband and I, when we moved to Medfield 10 years ago, wanted to go solar, but we felt like we couldn't because we couldn't afford it. And then we had an energy assessment of our house, and they said, have you thought about leasing solar panels? And so we went with Solar City, but Solar City did not like our roof. So they said no, and then they kept calling me, tempting me, being like, oh, come to us. And I kept saying you didn't like our roof. And what they didn't like is I'm in an older home. So up in our attic, like the beams are not perfectly aligned. And so they didn't like that. But then we talked to NRG. I can't remember how we got in touch with them, but we talked to them, and they were at one point the solar provider at Patriots Place. And so we went with them. Their engineer came in, they looked at our roof, they said, no, this is great. They also told us probably why Solar City rejected us. So I think we went solar about 5 or 7 years ago. And so for about 5 months of the year, we have no, like our electricity bill is 0 because all of our solar panel generates it. So all our solar goes through the system. If we're not currently using it, it goes into the grid, and then we get a credit for everything that goes into the grid. We had a great experience. Luckily, since we were leasing, we didn't have to do any of the paperwork. The paperwork was all taken care of for us. We just kind of said, hey, let's do it. We signed a contract, and then we've been with them ever since.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Lori. So I would actually now encourage people to ask questions. And I think, Megan, can we maybe give everybody the right to speak, or they want to be promoted and be part of the, video, they can also be joining as panelists.
Okay, I'm giving everyone permission to talk. We have about 18 people here, so I'm not.
Wonderful.
I hope this is all right.
So if you,
Lori, what did they say to you about what I mentioned in my portion about What if you sell your home?
Oh,
happens?
they said what they can do is that the new owner can take over the lease or they'll take them down. So it's like, I can't remember if we did it so long ago. I can't remember if we have to pay to get them taken down, but the new owner gets every opportunity to add to our lease. And at the end of our lease, we own our panels. And it's at the end of our lease, we can either choose to own the panels or they'll like give us new panels and then we'd start a new lease.
And just to add to that note, as I'm in the process of buying a new house that has existing panels that were bought by the owner originally, for just a $300 transfer fee, their warranties are being transferred over to us and we'll be the owners of the panels when we move in.
Fantastic. So if maybe if somebody wants to raise a hand, if you have any questions, we encourage you to ask, because our panelists have done a lot of research and have a lot of experience and are happy to answer any questions that you have. So there's a question here from Sean. Could you please explain the SMART program? So I'll do my best. So the SMART program is a Massachusetts program that was put on a few years ago, and it is designed to encourage people installing solar on their properties. It comes in blocks. So there's a certain amount of electricity in each block that can be produced. And when it started with block 1, there was a lot of money you got per kilowatt hour. And as the blocks fill up, we're going up to more blocks. Right now we're in block 7, and you get less and less money per kilowatt hour that you produce. And block 8 will be the last block that will be offered by Massachusetts. Is that about right? Does anybody want to add to that?
I was going to say that it would be nice if you could simply ask and answer, well, how much will I get? But it doesn't seem that simple to me from my experience. Like, I think it changes from month to month what I get. I know it's based on how much electricity you're producing and when you apply, but to plan for that, I don't know. I think I might have planned to make about $50 a month from it in my estimations. But it really, I mean, it depends on your size and everything, obviously.
And I just want to say also, the reason why we ask or promote that people join the solar or have solar soon is because as the SMART program fills up, and we don't know when block 7 will fill up, then you automatically go into block 8 with your next application. Sooner you do that, the more money you can make.
This is also true for the municipal side of things, because the school projects are also using the SMART program, and we're hoping to be in block 7.
I put a couple of websites in the chat about the SMART program.
Any other questions?
I might explain, related to that is the interconnection. As you apply to Eversource to install your solar, you apply to the SMART program, and at the same time, hopefully your installer will apply to interconnection. And basically it asks Eversource to make sure that the grid in your location has enough capacity to take in the electricity that you're generating. And it's sort of limited a little bit by the size of the transformers and how many other users are in your area. And if you reach a limit, there could be a cost associated with upgrading the grid. So you want to sort of make sure you get into your local interconnection while it still has availability. we should have a poll here, what people are most interested in, whether it's municipal solar or personal solar, residential solar.
Why don't we say that? Are people here, and I think there's a little thing, raise hand, right? You could
Yeah.
raise your hand. Are people here mostly to hear about the municipal solar projects at the schools? You could raise your hand. Okay, hands down. And if you were more interested in personal solar, we're seeing a lot of those. Excellent.
All right, so we can only encourage you to, Emily had really a lovely list of places to go to. Energy Sage is probably a great marketplace where you can just get started, and they also provide some basic coaching. You know, they go through your quotes with you. And otherwise, you know, walk around town, see who has solar, talk to the owners. Everybody I've met who has solar is really happy to talk about it, and give you some recommendations and encouragement. So there's a question. Oh,
James or David, do you have a question, or your hands up from the poll?
I think there's a question saying, can someone give a rough ballpark on the cost of purchase versus leasing?
Rough ballpark. I don't know about leasing. My understanding is that there's minimal cost associated with leasing. That is obviously if your roof is able to take it right away, right? The purchase, obviously you're going to be putting money down first, and then your 30% tax incentive will come in the next year. So there's a lag in getting that back. Average split level home. Well, it also depends on how far you want to go, how much you want to cover of your electricity bill. And that is really hard to say, because it depends on how many panels you have, and your payback time depends on your exposure, like, you know, how much sun you're getting, whether it's a south facing or more of a west or east facing.
That's a good reason to just throw it on Energy Sage if that's your question, because by tomorrow you'll probably have some numbers, and those are very rough. They will change their numbers from Energy Sage from what they initially give you, but those will be the basic. At least they'll take into account your house and its location and size.
I think that's a good advice, because that's a no commitment outreach. It's possible that you might get calls from a couple of vendors there, installers. But yeah, I mean, probably if you want to cover all your electricity bills, probably more in the range of 30,000 than 3,000.
Yeah. Lori, did you find that it's true that leasing involves zero cost up front?
Yeah, we didn't have to pay for anything up front. We pay like a monthly fee for them. And they're kind of the one there, because we're renting to own the panels. So there is like we pay Solus, which took over NRG, and then we also have our Eversource bill. So, but my husband knows more of this, and I was trying to get information out of him, and I didn't do it as well as I could have. But I asked him, I go, does it save us money? And he said, yes. He goes, because like 5 to 6 months of the year, we don't have an energy bill. Because we take enough in that we don't use as much as we produce.
And you know, about the question about how much it costs, obviously, you know, it depends on your system size and your energy usage. You know, if you have, you know, $1,000 in the summer month for electricity, and you want to offset most of that, you know, obviously have a larger investment to start with. But I think there was somebody raised their hand. Two participants. Okay. So I don't know that I see this. Fred Davis. It's the first person I see here.
Hi, folks. I just want to say that on the general question of PPA versus ownership, there are huge benefits that accrue to whoever owns the system. And if you're not the owner, they accrue to the people who are leasing it. And so my general recommendation is, if at all possible, unless there's some obstacle for you, try to own the system. These huge benefits should be coming directly to you.
So there's another question out here. Thank you, Fred. How much interior space is required for the hardware? So I just had it put on, and the only thing that's inside is some ducts, electric wires, and then ducting that runs in the attic, outside of my house, down the side of my house, to a couple of meters and things, and then it goes into my electricity meter, and there's nothing inside my house.
And in the basement, I have a box in the electrical panel area. But yeah, it doesn't take up space. It's just on the wall.
Can I ask you, Emily, do you have then a central inverter? Is that a central inverter there?
I don't think so. I think, yeah, you're talking about microinverters, right?
Yeah. Well, the microinverters are on your panels. Because I don't think I have a box on my inside.
Huh.
Interesting.
Mine's all outside.
The only other thing that will happen is, there's the company that runs the inverters. They have an app, and they allow you to see in the app in real time how much electricity you're producing, and they also give you, daily averages and yearly production or lifetime production. So it's kind of, if you're a little nerdy, that's really fun to watch.
I'll mention a couple other things that are coming up just for fun, unless anybody has a question. One is, you may have seen it last year, but the Energy Committee partnered with Medfield Environment Action to put together a yard sign campaign. And now that the weather's getting better, expect that'll ramp up again. But they have 15, I think, signs that they put outside the homes of people who have solar, and to identify them. And then if you have any questions, you can, the point is to see your neighbors having solar and maybe find somebody else that you can ask of that. And then during Climate Week, there are several homes that are going to have a stop by and chat with me sort of open house. Several people who have solar panels are going to just be available. And I don't know the exact schedule, but for example, on a Thursday from 4 to 7, they'll be home, and they say, come by and talk about my solar panels. And you have somebody who you could drop by and see. That's coming up for Climate Week.
April 29th to May 7th. And you will find the calendar. It's not posted yet, but you will find the calendar on meamedfield.org if you're interested. All right, Sean is posting here. I don't know if you can see the question and answer. Sean posted that Energy Sage has been very extremely helpful in our decision to add solar. So I can only say yay. Good for you, Sean. And I found that too, because the quotes that you get from Energy Sage are extremely detailed. It gives you, the price per kilowatt. It gives you all sorts of details about the panels and the inverters and everything you ever wanted to know technically. Whereas I got a couple of other quotes in addition to Energy Sage, and it was very general. Yeah, we'll put the system up and it's going to cost you $30,000 and it's going to have 25 panels. Very little about, comparability or details. And it was really hard to get the other companies to give me the level of detail that I would get through Energy Sage, where it's automatically required. And you get pages of details. So the other thing I wanted to say, if you feel you don't have questions, we're obviously available whenever you need us. And if you feel you have questions or you'd like to ask questions, but not in a recorded session, stop by tomorrow. We're going to be at the Public Safety Building and repeat this presentation in person. And we'll bring some handouts and maybe you can look at some things. I was planning to bring my Energy Sage quote, so you can have a look at what it looks like, what you might expect there. And we can just chat. So if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them now. Or any other comments?
I'll make 2 more comments. If anybody has a question about the warrant article, there's going to be a program on Wednesday, April 25th on Zoom to talk specifically about the warrant article, how it relates to the schools and the canopies in advance of town meeting. And then I would encourage you please to come to town meeting and vote yes for the Article 25 so that the schools have the flexibility to move forward on projects if they deem that they're a good investment for the schools.
And again, part of that is also the flexibility allows them to take the best deal. So if we would have to wait for another approval, obviously it would be hard to get into the queue for the smart and the interconnection part of that. Do it now.
Mm-hmm.
So if nobody else has a question, there's an open question. Dave. Oh, thank you, David. So I will close this discussion forum here, and thank you everybody for attending. Please join us again, and reach out anytime you have questions. Obviously, we'd be happy to talk, and reach out to your neighbors who you see either have a sign or you can see their panel. Sometimes people need to have a sign so then you know that they have panels because they're in the back of the house. And hopefully you will get solar and enjoy the benefits of it. So thank you so much. And I will now call this meeting to order. Oh, close this, sorry. Close this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lori, thank you for participating. That was great.
No problem. Have a great night.